Okay, Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Brothers, jazakumullah khair for attending today's circle. Inshallah, as you've seen from the flyers, the title of today's circle is Were the Prophets Political? Sallallahu alayhim ajma'een. And I think it's a very, very important topic, especially in the current reality that we're living in at the moment. So whether we're on social media, we open up Facebook or Twitter, we find that there's always some sort of political issue, not any random political issue, there's always political issues that are actually directly affecting the ummah. Yeah? So whether you're scrolling down and you'll see pictures of some of the stuff that is taking place in Syria, or you'll find that there's issues affecting the migrants that are fleeing from what is happening in Syria and Iraq. The issue of Palestine is picking up again as well. Some of the local issues that are affecting the messages. Sometimes you'll find on a regular basis as well, you'll find that front pages of the newspapers have got issues that are directly towards Muslims. So it's a very, very important topic for us to think about. Were the prophets political? And if they were, what do we mean by that? And should we think about how political they were and their approach to politics, and how is it that we can apply it to today's reality? That every time we see these situations happening, do we just carry on scrolling down, or do we say to ourselves, right, here's a situation affecting my brothers and sisters, affecting the rest of the ummah, what is it that I should do about it? How is it that the prophets sallallahu alayhim reacted to some of the situations? Were there similar situations at their time? All of these things inshallah will be discussed by Brother Yahya. Afterwards we'll open up the floor inshallah to questions or comments. So without any further delay, inshallah, Brother Yahya.
Jazakallah khair. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, topic today, as Ghassan has just mentioned, is were the prophets political, or were the prophets politicians? I think first and foremost, it's worth talking about what's understood by when you say the word politics in our times or in our communities. Usually, a lot of people associate a lot of negative things with the word politics. So you think of Tony Blair, George Bush, people who launched wars into our lands. You think of maybe the scandals and the sleaze that we see amongst politicians, whether it be the expenses scandal or cash for access scandal, things like this. Or even within our own communities, you hear many times oh, there's too much politics in my community, or too much politics in our masjid. What's he talking about there? He's seeing around him like people's communities, leaders of communities vying for power, and this is his understanding of politics. Even if we look to our own lands, what's the understanding of politics in the Muslim world? We see that we have politicians vying for power, vying for position. Spreading corruption, robbing the wealth of the people. So when you say the word politics, in general amongst a lot of people, it can be associated with a lot of negative emotions and feelings. So naturally, when you say Islam is political, or there's politics in Islam, naturally some of the ummah might feel, astaghfirullah, brother, what are you saying? How can you say there's politics in Islam? Look at politics, look at the scandals, look at the corruption, that's politics. Look at the, people vying for power and position for position of leadership or rulership. That's politics. Islam is pure. So naturally, they've been affected by a sort of Western understanding of politics, i.e., one of people seeking power or seeking position or seeking to benefit from that position. But is it right to say that Islam has no say on politics whatsoever? Does Islam actually define an understanding of what politics is? So inshallah, I hope to explore that today. So I'll open up with the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. It goes, كانت بنو إسرائيل تسوسهم الأنبياء كلما خلق نبي خلفه النبي وإنه لا نبي بعدي فَيَكُونُوا خُلَفَاءَ وَهُمْ يُكْثُرُونَ. Banu Israel, the prophets used to rule or manage their affairs. Every time a prophet passed away, another prophet succeeded them. And verily there is no prophet after me. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam talking about himself. There's no prophet after me, but there shall be khulafa, and there shall be many. In Bukhari and Muslim. It's interesting to note here, why I mention this hadith is to bring your attention to the verb, some light on the Arabic, where Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used the verb yasusu. And this comes from the root, the verb, the word siyasa. And any of you who know Arabic or Urdu, what is siyasat? Siyasa. What does it mean? Politics. So the Prophet himself, in this hadith, used the word yususu, siyasa. And what was he using it in relation to? And to show that actually the prophets, yususu, the Banu Israel, they looked after the affairs of Banu Israel. So the understanding here of politics in Islam is not one of corruption or vying for power, is actually of taking care of the affairs of the people. And look, actually, note here in this hadith, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that the prophets used to look after the affairs of the people. So just from this hadith, we understand actually that Islam actually has a different take on politics. It's not one of, as I mentioned, of corruption or vying for power or position. It's actually in relation to looking after the affairs of the people. But let's explore further, brothers. Let's actually go through some real examples. Let's start off with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the greatest of all the prophets, who we seek to follow in every aspect of our life, who we seek to follow in everything, from our prayer to our interactions to how we live our lives. So is there something we can take from the Prophet in relation to politics? And what would you say if someone said to you, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a politician? So let's explore. So let's start off in the time, I'll give just a few examples here, starting off with the time of Makkah, in the beginning of the message. Who knows which one of the surahs was the first surah in relation to attacking a practice of Quraysh? Anyone? No? That's fine. So Surah Takwir. Surah Takwir, the Shams Kuwirat, Widan Najum Qudirat. So this is said to be one of the first surahs revealed, actually after Iqra. It's a very early surah. And why I'm highlighting this surah, because it has something in this surah which is very interesting. When it says, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. When the infant child buried alive is questioned, for what crime did she commit? So what's the context of this ayah? What is this ayah talking about? What is it addressing? It's addressing the practice of Quraysh burying daughters alive. Why did they do this? Was it just because they did it for fun, they got thrills out of it? Or was this a reflection of their view of women and their treatment of women? And how the day when a child, it was announced that a girl was born, this was a day of great sadness for any man or any family in Quraysh, or in not just Quraysh, in the whole Arabian Peninsula. It was even worse than, like, imagine if you've lost your job, you've lost your car, you lost a family member. That's how it felt when a girl was born in Arabia at this time. You see, it was a day of great sadness. And furthermore, this was because of their view of women. We see it today in the world. You know, this doesn't just happen in the time of Arabia. We see it in the Indian subcontinent, where a woman is viewed with low worth, can't benefit the family. You know, she can't. You know, we need males to work. There's economic reasons there. You know, women, they go off, they get married, they leave our family. You know, that was the same sort of feelings that the Quraysh had about women, and hence that's why when a daughter was born, they would bury her. Isn't this so? What is this issue here? What is this ayah addressing? It's addressing a political issue. Why? Because this is to do with the affairs of people. This is to do with the affairs of who? Half of society, women. So this is an example here of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam addressing a political issue, i.e. a societal issue related to what? The affairs of the people. What did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam say about poverty? We know many ayats, you know, I don't even need to go through them, of talking about giving poverty, and also talking about the reward of those who give charity, the reward of those who look after the orphan, who look after the miskin, the yatim, the needy. and also attacking the behavior of the leaders of Quraysh, how they would accumulate wealth for show, and they wouldn't even give any to the poor, nor would they encourage others to give to the poor. Is this not a society? Isn't this a political issue? Isn't talking about poverty and addressing poverty to do with the affairs of the people? Again, this is an example here. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as well as talking about the worship of Allah and calling people to Islam, he's also addressing a problem related to what? The affairs of the people. And the affairs of the people is what? Political issues. Another example for Makkah. As you know, in Makkah you had, Makkah you had a lot of racism. So the non-Arab was viewed lower than the Arab. The African was considered a slave, was viewed lower. And also you had a class system depending on what tribe you were born into. And this was something people would take pride in, go to war of, and pride themselves in just being a member of a certain tribe. Essentially, this is racism. This is racism, isn't it? This is a belief that certain people is better than another people. You see, and what did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What was the message of the Quran to address this? That no, insan is min Adam, and Adam is min Turab. All of mankind is from Adam, and Adam is from dirt. I.e., men are equal. You're not privileged just based upon what? Your tribe or your race. You are all equal in the sight of Allah as human beings, except in good deeds. You see, this rocked the society. Abu Lahab was like, Abu Jahl, what? Bilal is equal to me? Who's Bilal? he gets my water. Who are you to say, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he's equal to me? Abu Jahl. What is this? Is this not Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam here addressing what? A societal issue, an issue that affects the affairs of people, a political issue. In Medina, what was the first thing when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did after he built the masjid? What did he write? What did he establish? The Sahifa, the constitution, the Dustur, a constitution based upon what? The Quran and the Sunnah. In this constitution, he talked about the rights of Muslim, defined the relationship between Muslims and the non-Muslims. He even defined citizenship. Talked about when he built a brotherhood between who? The Muhajirin and the Ansar, the immigrants, and the Ansar, who were the citizens. This is an issue. This is a law on what? Immigration. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how did he define the relationship between the immigrants and the citizens? Did he put up fences with police at the borders? And made a hard asylum process for them to get asylum, or did he pair up every Muhajirin with an Ansar and made them brothers, equal? You see, is this not a political issue? Does this not concern the affairs of people? You see. And on top of that, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent governors to different lands, governors, to look after the affairs of the people. And he would question them about what they would judge. And they said that we would judge by the Quran and the Sunnah and analogy, qiyas, you see. Every time he sent a governor. He would also appoint governors and dismiss governors if they weren't fulfilling their duties. Political issue, affairs of the people, politics. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he established the masjid, it wasn't just a place of prayer. This was the equivalent of the White House, the Houses of Parliament, the government building. Because from this masjid was their prayer, but also the affairs of the Muslims. The central meeting point was the Masjid in Medina, the first masjid. In this masjid, he governed the affairs of the people. He settled disputes. He heard cases. He dispatched emissaries, so on and so forth, from the masjid. So as well as a place for prayer and worship and learning, it was the place of politics, the centre of politics. So moving on, many examples from the life of the Prophet. I've just picked a few, but when just going through the life of the Prophet, reading the seerah, you can make the same links here between the affair, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet managing and dealing with the affairs of the people. Let's move on to Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, who needs no introduction. Any time you read open up a Quran, you're likely to come across an ayah on Musa. It's said that the Quran is almost half of it is about Musa. A lot of the Quran it talks about Musa many, many times. A great prophet of great standing in Islam. But when we read the ayats in relation to Musa, what was the most noticeable ayats we see? اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى in Surah Taha, in Surah Naziyat as well. Same ayat. اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى. It's mentioned again in Shura. إذ نادى ربك موسى أن أتي القوم الظالمين قوم فرعون ألا يتقون. Just to go through the translations. اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى. Go to Fir'aun, verily he has oppressed. Go to Pharaoh, he has oppressed. Again. And another ayat, verily go Musa, I command that you go to a oppressing people, the people of Fir'aun. And there's many other ayat. What is this? What's happening? Who was Fir'aun? Was he just some next man, some regular guy? Or does he count amongst the worst tyrants that history has seen? On the same levels of the tyrants we see today, your Bashar al-Assad, your Karamovs, your Sisis. What did he do? He enslaved an entire nation. He put an entire nation in chains and put them to work. He actually, further than that, he killed all the boys. Any boys born, they were killed, and just the women were left to live. He mass enslaved the entire nation. This was a tyrant. He put society into groups, weakening a group, strengthening a group. Why? To consolidate his rule. Same things we see rulers today do. So Pharaoh was who? He was a ruler. What is a ruler? Isn't this a political position? In fact, it is the highest political position because they're the ones who are ultimately responsible for managing the affairs of the people. What was Musa commanded to do? Was his first commands all about just praying? All about tazkiyah, purifying yourself, and just being good to your neighbours? Or was his first command, اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى? Go to Fir'aun, verily he's an oppressor. This was the first command, not the 10th, 12th, 20th. After, he perfected himself, it was the first command. Go to Fir'aun. Many ayat in relation to going to Fir'aun and the struggle we had with Fir'aun, and many ayat talking about, the other half of the ayat talk about what? The managing of the affairs of Banu Israel. The challenges Musa had with dealing with his people. Many examples of that. Again, what does it mean to deal with the affairs of the people? This is politics. These are political issues. Musa was a politician, alayhi salatu wasalam. Moving on, Lut, alayhi salatu wasalam. What was he sent to do? People? Prophet Lut? To Thamud, yeah. And what did Thamud do? They were homosexual. Now you might think, well, this is not a political issue. Yes, it is a political issue. What happens if you have a large society that is homosexual? What's going to happen to the family unit? There won't be a family unit because men and women aren't marrying. It's all men and men. What's going to happen to generations? How are they going to be able to, grow and produce? And on top of that, it's a disgusting act. What was Lut commanded to do? To go to the people of Thamud and forbid them, call them to stop this detestable act. Political issue. Affairs of the people. Shu'aib. Prophet Shu'aib was sent to the people of Al-Aika. I think that Aika is the tree. The people who used to worship a tree. As well as call them to worship Allah as well and to obey Allah. He also said to them, أوفوا الكيل ولا تكونوا من المكسرين وزنوا بالقسطاس المستقيم ولا تبخسوا الناس أشياءهم ولا تعثوا في الأرض مفسدين. He went to his people and said, give full measure. Full measure in relation to what? To trade. The people of Acre used to cheat in trading. Give full measure and be not those of who diminish. People who fiddle with the weights to give less measure and take more money. This is what the people of Acre did. They cheated in relation to trade, economics. and weigh with right balance, and do not wrong people of their things, or act corruptly in the earth and causing mischief. There's a number of things here in relation to what? Is this solely in relation to ibadat and purification? Or is this talking about being just in the marketplace when you're dealing with people's economical affairs? Don't wrong people of their things. Don't cause corruption, fasad, and mischief. These are all affairs to do with what? These are all ayats to do with the affairs of the people, political issues. That was Prophet Shu'aib, Hud, Salih, many other anbiya. When it's mentioned about them, it starts with calling people to the worship of Allah. And how does the Quran? What does Allah call the people who they used to go to? Allah refers to them as Mala'ul Qawm. What does that mean in Arabic? Mala'ul Qawm is the chiefs of the people. What does that mean? Not just the chiefs were the rulers, the influentials, the ones who are responsible for the affairs of the people. We find this mentioned frequently in the Quran, especially in relation to the prophets I've mentioned, that the Mala'ul Qawm. Who is the Mala'ul Qawm? Today, who is the Mala'ul Qawm? Is it not Sisi and his administration? Is it not Bashar al-Assad and his people? Is it not the Saudi royal family? Is it not David Cameron and his cabinet? Is it not Obama and his administration? These are the Mala'ul Qawm, the influential, the rulers, the chiefs of the people. These were the primary targets of all the prophets. As well as calling to people individually, they went directly to the rulers, the chiefs. Why? Because they are the ones in position of authority and the ones best positioned to manage the affairs of the people. Politicians. So you shouldn't think, brothers, when we see, to undermine this point, when people obviously might say, we're always talking about the rulers, we're always talking about politics all the time. Don't worry about talking about Sisi, Bashar al-Assad, or the rulers of Saudi or Pakistan, what have you. Worry upon yourself. You need to go back and read more Quran. You need to perfect your adab, your manners, your morals, and of course that's true. We always have to do that. Isn't it ironic though, when you to go back to the Quran, and then we open the Quran, we read these ayats. And what are they referring to in them? Mala'ul Qawm. They are people of rulership, the people of authority, and addressing their practices. So that's an ironic thing, that the Quran itself, and to be told that we need to increase more in our knowledge of Quran, only to find out that the Quran itself is giving us many examples and telling us to be political, i.e. to account injustice, i.e. to go to the Mala'ul Qawm, or to the chiefs of the people, and to account them. So what does that mean then for us in today's situation now? When we look around us, we see so many things, just to take a few. Syria, for example. I don't need to go into the graphic detail about Syria. We've seen it for the last 4 or 5 years, what's happening there and what's happening on a daily basis. We're talking a whole population either killed or driven out of the land. And when they are and having to cross, circles of fire and death to get to have to cross to risk their drowning in the Mediterranean, then to come onto land and to go through border police who are meeting them with batons and fences, and then to arrive to their destination and to be met with hate chants from the local people telling them to go back home, what have you. What we saw in the bus in, I don't know if it was Germany, I saw in a news article of the bus of refugees, and outside was a group of protesters, I think it was Germany, abusing them and telling them to go back home, and the ones who remain in Syria live under constant fear of being bombed, children dying, women raped, our sisters, our uncles, our brothers. This is no joke. And take the example of our sisters, who the videos you can come across, the disgusting videos showing troops, American troops, how they treat our sisters. Our sisters, your own sister, humiliating them, raping them. How would the prophets respond to this? Would they respond just like our rulers are responding today by sending condolences? What did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam do? What did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam do when, in one of the Jewish tribes, famous narration, a famous story in the Seerah, where in the Jewish tribes, one of the Muslim women, because in Medina, it was one of the outside Jewish tribes, because obviously the Muslims used to freely mix different tribes to trade. A Jewish man pinned her jilbab to her back. So when she stood up, her aura became shown. It was to humiliate her. And a Muslim man came to her defense, and he was killed. How did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam respond to this? Did he just send condolences and said, we condemn what you did, that's terrible? When this news came to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he dispatched the Aus and the Khazraj, the Salihul Mu'mineen, instantly. Get up, let's go. Get ready, get your gear on, we're going there. That's what Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. Straight away. Didn't wait, didn't call these meetings. That's just one sister and one Muslim man. Millions killed, raped, pillaged. Not one call. Even the Prophet ﷺ, even they draw cartoons about him. Nothing. So how would Muhammad ﷺ respond to this issue? How did he respond to this issue? That is a politician who takes cares and holds the affairs of the Muslims up here, not down here like our rulers do. Take Guantanamo Bay. Sorry, I pronounce it wrong sometimes. Guantanamo. Or any other prisons. There are many prisons we have, whether it be Bagram or Abu Ghraib, where Muslims are being held indefinitely, like Shakir Amir, who hadn't seen his son born. Saw him 14 years later. He was held without trial, without access to a lawyer. Many Muslims still. And which chief or ruler of our people demands their release? Afia Siddiqui. No one knows what's happening to her. She's in the prisons of the Qawm al-Dhalimin, the oppressors. Which one is taking care of her affairs? How would the prophets manage this? In fact, Prophet Musa alayhi salatu wasalam went to who? Fir'aun, and demanded the release of Banu Israel. Demanded to release his people. Which one of our rulers demands the release of our brothers and sisters in the jails of the West, or the jails of the tyrants? And how did Musa respond? See, look at the difference. That is a true politician. That's someone who holds the affairs of the people up here. And many other examples. We look at the call to change Islam on a daily basis, especially here in the West, saying, change Islam a bit. The Quraysh used to say the same thing. In the Quran it says, "Ati bi Quran ghayri hadha aw badilhu." Give us a different Quran or change it a little bit. Isn't this what we see on a daily basis from the Mala al-Qawm, the people of influence, telling us to, your Islam is a bit too extreme, change it up a little bit, get rid of some of the stuff about jihad, this homosexual thing, we've got issues with that, how about you just get rid of it, or replace it with something else, modify it, And what was the response? The response was, the translation was, it doesn't, from Allah commanded Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Qul," say, it does not befit me to change this Quran. I only follow what has been revealed. That is a political response, and that should be our response to this issue. When they tell us to change your deen a bit, we say, who are we to change Islam? It doesn't befit us to change Islam or the Quran. We follow only what has been revealed. That is a response. This is a response to an issue affecting us as Muslims, our affairs, political issues. I wanted to draw it to a close soon. I wanted to come back to the beginning of my talk before I do that, and talk about the hadith, the beautiful hadith, the origin of the word Yususu. Remember, what's the root? What does this word mean, Yususu? Political. The origin of this word, I was sitting with, alhamdulillah, the pleasure of sitting with Ghassan's dad the other day. And he explained to me the origin of this word, siyasa, Yususu. And he said actually the classical usage is the Arabs used to use this in relation to treating their horses. In fact, when they used this word, it was in relation to looking after their horses. And I thought, subhanAllah, isn't that beautiful? Because the horses, who are the horses? They weren't just like the donkeys. The horses were your pride and joy. You take care of your horses, don't you? Today it's cars, isn't it? We take care of our cars, you know. Most people, a lot of people do. You know, if it gets scratched, you go crazy. You know, you service it, you spend lots of money in it, keep it clean. Brother starts eating in your car, you're like, brother, hold on a minute, what are you doing? Okay, are you mad? Isn't it? That's how, look how we take care. Isn't it fun? Now, isn't it beautiful that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used this word in relation to taking care of the affairs of the Muslims, the people. So we should treat and look after the affairs of the people just like you would look after your most precious thing, your most valuable thing. In fact, the ummah is more valuable than all that you possess. Isn't that beautiful, that this same verb, you know? And that's what the prophets did. They looked after us. They still look after us today in Revelation, in laying down Islam. In the Quran, their example in the Quran that we read and draw benefit and get ruling from. You know, they looked after the affairs, just like the Arabs used to look after their horses. So what does that mean for us then? What does that mean for us now as inheritors of the prophets, if we are to follow their example? And in summary, not only then that were the prophets politicians, they were the best of politicians. They are our model to follow. In every prophet we see, whether it be Hud, Lut, Musa, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they took care and they addressed the affairs of the people. So for us as Muslims now to abide by this example, we too have to be, as well as perfecting our ibadah, we also have to perfect our worship in following the examples of the Prophet, in taking care of the affairs of the people. This is not a secondary issue. It's not something you do after you've memorized whole of Quran. It's not something you do when you've reached this level of Iman, then you worry about the affairs of the people. It's actually what you should start with, because that's what the prophets start with. They started with the affairs of the people, at the same time as perfecting themselves, as calling to worship and ibadah. It's not a separate issue. So for us as Muslims, we should be concerned with the affairs of Muslims, our families, our local communities, and Muslims abroad. We need to be concerned. We need to speak out against injustice like Musa and all the other prophets did. We need to call for the return of Islam, and the solution, and to stop the evil practices, the wrong practices, just like the prophets did. And to close with the hadith, many here, the hadith we've heard many times, where Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, none of you will attain complete Iman until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. What does it mean to love for your brother what you love for yourself? It means that you wish his affairs were taken care of just like yours are. You see? And no matter how many times you perfect yourself, or how many times you seek to beautify your deen, you will never do that. You will never attain full Iman until you start becoming political and start calling the ummah. Because it doesn't work the other way. You've got to do both. And that's what is understood from this hadith. That's how you attain complete Iman. Not half Iman, complete. So, inshallah, I think I'll end it there, inshallah. I'll open up for questions and answers and inshallah continue this discussion, inshallah.